but I write as B. Smith. One of the problems, if you have the surname Smith, is that there are often duplications in terms of names. So there is another Irish poet from Dundalk called Barbara Smith, published by Doghouse. I'm not her. There's an academic writer called Barbara Smith in the States. I'm not her. There is another Barbara Smith who also goes by the name of B. Smith, who has very successful restaurants on Long Island and in Union Station and places like that. And I'm not that B. Smith either. But anyway, I'm going to give you some of the poems, a few poems tonight. And I thought that I would start with Athena, who is the goddess of wisdom. So Athena. Zeus knew. Daughters can be a headache. Enough of one for him to take an axe to his own head, freeing himself, unleashing this unruly thought-form female, keen to make her own world, to create and separate. Not quite would he have made to order for a daddy's girl, yet enough of her father's daughter that no mortal man would ever make the grade. God's girl paradigm could do better for herself alone amongst her sex, an ideal of woman. Not for her, of woman born. She is conceptual artifact, an installation of womanhood, one who can think like a man, the very definition of a man's God, better made female. But remember, Metis, Zeus's original wife, the womb that was not full, a mother at one remove, so to speak. Metis, she was wisdom. Even in that masculine pantheon, poor wayward Zeus, he did not think. Until too late, he did not know. He could not suppress this, his wise woman child, with ideas of her own. I'm of an age where certain women poets were very formative. And it was really hard growing up in the 1970s when a lot of the American women poets were Sylvia Plath and Anne Sexton, who all managed to kill themselves, which was not really an incentive to become a woman poet at that stage. But anyway, this poem is my imaginary encounter with Anne Sexton and Sylvia Plath, who both actually attended a course together in Cambridge one summer. And it's called Cocktail Hour with Anne and Sylvia. Of course, we would meet in a bar, dark as our wombs, the banquettes lined in wine marquette. 3 sexy Scorpios, 1 golden girl, 1 slow-eyed brunette, and me, showing the ashes of middle age. It would have to be August, in a limp Boston loosening her corsets against vapidity and the heat. We would meet at this watering hole, cackling over very dry martinis, or maybe a couple of vodka stingers instead. We would watch the spills on the bar spread like Rorschach blots. We would all cheerfully wear our ovaries on our sleeves and make coarse jokes about male poets and their prints. Flirting academically, of course, with the bartender, we would order more nostrums, crazy women swiveling gaily on bar stools. You both would be happy. You'd swear off crucifixion by art, decide to survive, become grandmas, grin and flash nicotine-stained teeth, wear cliché purple hats and scarlet lipstick, living more potently than legend or myth. And another poem which Silvercraft is very famous for having written Lady Lazarus, and then Carol Ann Duffy has also written about various wives of famous men in history, called The World's Wife. And I got thinking, having read these, I kind of thought, well, what would it be like to have been Lazarus' wife? So this is called Being Lazarus' Wife. So how did Lazarus' wife feel when her husband came back for his very dramatic second act? Would he seamlessly pick up the old reflexes, the same routine, dinner with his mother every Friday night, Saturday night sex, or would he have visions of something other? Would he just drop his winding sheet and suddenly want to buy a Porsche? Would he demand a divorce? Become a hippie? A zealot? Or do nothing at all? A life replete, not needing a different wife or a different life. But still, when you have been resurrected, either to amuse Jesus or serve some opaque higher purpose, when your life has been turned into parable, people will scream and stare. They faint. Your debtors despair and your creditors stop gnashing their teeth. But mostly, they want you to tell them what it's like to die. But Lazarus, all he wants to talk about is being alive. He grows vague about the dying. He disappoints with no tales of angels or gorgons, although sometimes into her pillow he will mention the night train to Edinburgh, all darkness and motion with a sudden flash. When you pause at a level crossing, there was a clang and a lurch forward, and he looked out through a rain-splashed window. It was that mundane. It was that sublime. Although for him, this time they managed to clear the leaves off the line. He reached the station, but it was not a terminus. All change. I'll read one final poem, which is actually about, I moved to this area in 2001, and I'd fallen in love with the land. And this is inspired from the view from my doorway, and it's called Standing on My Doorsill, Surrounded by the Sacred. Standing on my doorsill, surrounded by the sacred. The heat of the sun warming stone, the milky glare at full moon, the vibrant glints of planet and star as a plow furrows the night sky. Standing on my doorsill, surrounded by the sacred. One New Year's morning, I looked up, called by the harsh honking of 4 whooper swans in formation, gliding in to land on Loch Moneen. Standing on my doorsill, surrounded by the sacred. John O'Rourke's cows now graze in the flat fold of field that Paddy's sheep yielded when they moved from winter pasture to lambing barn. Standing on my doorsill, surrounded by the sacred. The willow quenches itself on our acre, drinking deeply from sodden peat. An oak nurtured from an acorn now stands tall, while the ash, as usual, is the last to leaf. Standing on my doorsill, surrounded by the sacred. The cats scratch at the dandelions. The dogs doze in a patch of sun. The cuckoo immigrates each April. The bee feasts on apple blossom. Standing on my doorsill, surrounded by the sacred. Gaudy gorse blazes on the hillside. Meadow sweet shrouds the acre in bridal lace. Lady's mantle does her juju in the border. Blood from bramble thorn bears sweet. Standing on my doorsill, surrounded by the sacred, they call this the briery place. Root system curled round my ankles. I walk out into the world, awake to this bounty and beauty. Now we're going to take a break, and then I think it's going to be about 10 or 15 minutes, and then Kevin McAleer is going to come. Oh. Okay, so we'll see you back in about 10 minutes, okay? Thank you.